I can't see. Ooh, 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 I can't see.
No, I don't want to go full screen. No, I don't want to go full screen. No, I don't want to go full screen. No, I.
Okay, so I've worked out I need to have the stream muted because otherwise I hear everything in echo.
Yes, I decided I would have the stream on, so there's someone watching, so to speak. Hello, house spouse.
Hello.
Ooh.
Did we post the talking points?
Yes.
We did?
No.
No,
Did we not?
no.
I thought it. Okay. Never mind. One, two, three, four, five. Charge.
Do you want me to post it, or will you post it?
No, you go for it.
Should we do that under events? For
I would
current.
do. I'm going to set the channel status as streaming.
I'm gonna double check how it looks. Yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, please do it, because my brain cannot do things, and if I just copy paste, it's just gonna be a wall of text. Yes, you are correct, Sesh. Book club starts now.
There we go. One, two, three.
Oh,
One, two,
we had a
three.
lot of
1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, so I just need to edit that last one because I'm missing a dash.
Yes, we did have some talking points.
An essay's worth of talking points.
2 hours.
here.
Well, technically, I need to dip out at 8:30 since I'm streaming.
What movie is it today?
I'm double checking. The Woman in Black.
Ah, okay.
And one with Radcliffe in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we are talking. We are live.
We are talking. We are live.
We are talking. We are live. That's it. This is the whole stream. Welcome.
I figured I would just check chat. I don't.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, Titus.
Hello.
See this? Really?
Titus? Titus?
Yes.
Ty, isn't
Titus.
it? It's an FF.
It's just
name,
Shady.
isn't it?
Just call him Shady. Get rid of the
No,
argument.
no, you didn't.
That too.
No. It's Titus.
No.
I thought Tidus, and it was from a Final Fantasy game.
Yes, it's from 10, where they never say his name.
Oh, okay.
And I think in Kingdom Hearts they say Titus.
That would be silly, to be fair.
But either way, hi.
If we want to start with
It's
some
your show
talking.
tonight.
Oh no, the horror.
Yes, that's what we're here to talk about.
Right on theme.
Yes, I figured. So let's start with some classic horror versus modern scares. What classic horror books still hold up today, and which ones have faded over time?
So I like Dracula still, Bram Stoker's, and I also like Frankenstein. So I'd say those hold up.
Considering they're getting remakes like probably every year.
Well,
Yeah,
and on top of that, they are the, source material for so many other things. You think if we didn't have Dracula, we wouldn't have Interview with a Vampire or
Blade.
Blade, yeah. I was going to say the T word, but that would probably be a good thing.
we don't talk about that.
We don't
That
talk
is
about
only
stalkers.
time of day.
Or a zone.
Yes, that too.
And
But yeah, I
obviously as
like.
well for Mary Shelley. Sorry, Eli.
No, I like the.
Like where the sidewalk ends.
I am trying to remember why I like Dracula still. Because most of that book is a chase sequence, basically. But it's a very interesting chase sequence.
And of course, I think you've got to give props to Mary Shelley for being one of the first female horror writers, and still to this day being in the top 10 of horror writers.
Like, Frankenstein is absolutely amazing still. It is very fun to read.
100%. And we have to give props for the fact that without Bram Stoker's Dracula and without Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, we wouldn't have had Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing. And that film is so bad it's good.
Yes. Very much so.
Isn't that when he has a minigun?
Yep.
Yep. And there's werewolves that are terribly CGI'd.
Yeah, and I remember the scene where, was it
The James
the
Bond
Vampire
style.
Bride?
No, I
No,
like
but the
the
Vampire
James Bond
Bride thing is-
style. Let's set you up with all your gadgets. Very Q moment with the priests.
Yeah. I mean, it's a silly, fun movie.
Yeah, oh, that's the thing. It's it's not. It's not an Oscar winner. It's not gonna be in an all-time favorite list, but it is still a good movie.
Which one?
Hi,
We also
Chloe.
Sorry.
don't have.
Van Helsing, Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing.
We
Thank you
also
very
wouldn't
much.
I enjoyed it.
have.
Oh, you can't not enjoy it, but you also have to give props to the fact that it's not going to be topping
Good.
any lists apart from it's so bad it's good.
No. Well, there's a difference between enjoyable and good. I'd say.
We have Clover in chat of the Parental Divers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what you're talking about, though, is like supernatural. What you class as like supernatural horror, correct?
Well, this is supernatural. horror.
Well,
Yeah.
technically speaking, I think Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker come under classic horror more than supernatural horror. Probably more for Mary Shelley than Bram Stoker, because technically nothing of hers is supernatural.
Hmm.
Because he's just a mad
It's closer to
doctor
sci-fi.
Yeah,
chucks
that's
a bloke together and then electrocutes him until he comes to life.
It's basically sci-fi.
Yeah,
So it's just extreme CPR, is what you're telling me.
pretty much. That's exactly it.
Defibrillated to hell and back.
The very first necromancer.
Absolutely.
No, that would be Dracula, wouldn't it?
No, because he didn't. No, because
No, because
vampires
they
aren't
don't die.
alive.
Yeah, they don't die in Dracula.
No, but he bites necks.
Yes, but he did.
Romancer. There we go. We are 10 minutes in and we've had our first dad joke. Impressed.
I hate you, Sam.
You
This
don't.
guy's
But
just exasperated dad.
I also like. I wonder if this is classic horror, but Mountains of Madness. So Lovecraft.
that is Lovecraft is very horror.
Yes, but is it classic?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
You know what else comes under classic horror? Let's have a look.
Oh, Dorian Gray is also classic horror, right?
It is.
And that's also
It's
a really fun book.
50-50 on the does it fit in the classic horror genre or not. Just because of the fact that the horror element is questionable.
Yeah.
I mean, the horror of his own mortality.
Mm.
And
God, Stephen King is classed as classic horror now.
that's wrong. But
Is it? How old does it need to be a classic?
One generation.
I don't know. Yeah. And then I had one other. This isn't a book necessarily. Telltale Heart. So that has to be
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah. And that's probably my favorite Poe story.
See, I am a cliche, and it is Nevermore for me.
You mean The Raven?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Raven is still good. Like
Yeah,
it
but
has incredible prose.
I know 100% that I'm a cliche when I say that I'm an Edgar Allan Poe fan, and that is still
But-
by far my favourite. I love all of his work, but that is still my standout favourite.
But yeah, no, those are my classics. I would squarely not put King's books in the classic thing genre or category.
It's 3 years off being 50 years old.
Fair enough. I have a
Just
very
as a-
particular book in mind, so let's see when that came out.
That was The Shining specifically, is 3
Okay.
years off being 50 years old.
Dehydration detected.
I have tea. Does that count? I've just realised he can't hear me.
Yeah.
What about tea counting?
No,
I've been
Frankel.
bitsed for a hydration reminder from Clover, so I'm trying to find out if tea counts for hydration.
I can't count.
Technically, it's a diuretic, so no.
I do have a bottle of water in there, so I will drink some of that too, just to.
So 78, the book came out. Apparently. Which is The Stand, which is probably my favorite King novel, or book novel, whatever.
Yune and I were talking about this earlier because you've read Carrie, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think I realised I said I don't think I've read a Stephen King novel, but I think I have because I've read Salem's Lot. I only remember that after.
Salem's Lot I really like, because it feels incredibly isolationist. No, but like I can actually feel the isolation of the main character.
Yeah.
The Stand is very very classic good versus evil, power corrupts, etc., etc., set in a post-apocalyptic world. The setup is probably better than the payoff, honestly.
Okay.
But yeah. And I lied technically because the best Stephen King book by far is The Talisman, but it's a collaboration with Straub.
Is this why we say 2 is better than 1?
I
know that's not always the case when it comes to
No.
writers.
No, but like the Talisman is horror coming of age story with world shifting. Tickles a lot of my likes.
I have to say, I'm not a horror fan in both print or film, so I've had to Google horror books to see if I have read any, and then I'm questioning what exactly makes them horror as such, because again, Interview with the Vampire is in the list, so is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I've read them both. I've read Dracula, I've read Frankenstein, and I don't know if I'd class them as horror in the way that horror is now.
To compare to now, where it's more gore and disturbing,
Yeah.
no. But in the classic view and aspect of being horror for creatures and supernatural, etc., yes.
I think that's a big difference between horror now and horror before.
I was going to say, I wonder if it's because our
amount of gore.
Well, that's what I was
same
going
I
to say.
think one of the other things as well is we've gone from almost like a lot of horror was based on like superstition, myth, that type of thing. And then as I want to say almost like technology and more global access to information has become a thing. Those things, or even just because it has been that way for such a length of time, those things have become much more romanticized, I guess. And horror, I think, has actually gone a lot more in a psychological manner than in a what you'd probably class as like a superstitious. So if you look like vampires, ghosts, and everything, they all used to be folk tales and stemmed from religion or like, you know, other things that were very much not. I'm not going to say fact based because, you know, but. And then we've got this understanding now of like, okay, this is how the world works. There are universal laws, things we understand, and they've almost become so built into society that people have got used to them. A lot of horror comes from a lack of understanding of something. That's what makes it scary. And that's why I think horror has much gone from like evil creatures to like psychological horror. And that's why I think horror is actually done better in film than it is done in books. Because I think there's a lot more aspects of horror that you can explore in a modern sense through, you know, one of the ones that came out, the films a couple of years ago was The Invisible Man, and the entire thing was you'll never know when it's there, and it's that concept would be so hard to portray, I think, in a book because you don't have the tension that's built from experiencing that in a visual format rather than a literary format is very different. So yeah, I think it's moved from an understanding of what is classed as supernatural, which has become much more romanticized, to a much more understanding of like psychology and the way that we can manipulate emotions like fear and things.
This is the thing, I wonder if it is, like you say, because a lot of it before was almost that fear of the unknown, so you could spook people with the highway.
Well, that's what horror is.
Yeah, but
horror is the fear of the unknown, and the issue
like
is that because
now, what is unknown, really? It's why obviously like films set in space still do very, very well, because it is such a massive unknown to us. And when you look at a lot of horror that comes out now, it tends to be more about the horrors that humans can do, because it's still such an unknown to us that someone can be that like messed up or do such a thing. Whereas
it's an understanding of behavior. We have a lack of understanding of why of you know, nature versus nurture, environment, influence, natural deviation of behaviors and things, psychology, all of that. And this is where I'm saying is, prior to that, it was fear of God, fear of devils and demons and ghosts, and you know, because we've developed, I want to say, educationally, and we've developed technologically, you know, a lot of those things have just because I think as well, horror has to evolve like everything else, because if horror is the fear of the unknown, there are only so many ways you can tell a ghost story, because before they all kind of sound a little bit similar, and then you actually become aware of just the trope in and of itself. It becomes known. You start being able to predict jump scares and things like that, because they become almost patterned in nature. Whereas again, psychology, we have such a little understanding of how, not the brain, but the mind. I think that's the key to it, is that it's the exploration of the mind, because that in and of itself is a metaphysical thing. It's not something we can physically hold, but it's something that can be manipulated beyond recognition. And I think that, you know, but also I'd say modern fears have evolved as well. Because again, how many people have stepped away from religion when that was the big push into, like, you know, the fear. Yeah, no, exactly. And that was ghosts, demons, devils. That's what made up horrors. And now, because a lot of I'd definitely say like American and British type has moved away from that kind of influence. Trying to phrase this politically without insulting anyone. But the influence of religion has reduced so dramatically.
First swear word.
But yeah, the influence of religion has reduced so dramatically that fears have had to evolve, because we are no longer scared of the retribution of God or the summoning of devils and demons. We're much more scared about, being manipulated on a personal level, national level, global level, all of these types of things. It's much more personal, I guess. But yeah, that's what I think differentiates modern from classic.
Can I ask a question then?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we're going to differ here. You've been reading 86.
Mm-hmm.
Is that horror? Because
do you want to give context to what that is for people who don't know? Well, I think of a way to answer that.
Okay. 86 is a I guess
manga turned anime.
Yeah, manga turned anime. Technically, visual novel turned manga turned anime, where our main characters, technically our main cast, are constantly attacked by a legion of autonomous creatures, and as the series goes on, we get to know more about this legion. And also why the cast is fighting and under what circumstances they're fighting. I am deliberately being vague here, just FYI.
It involves child soldiers, and it has a take on like German. It's very much almost like a take on or influenced by the events of World War II. In terms of the separation of races and things that's in there.
Yeah, it has heavy apartheid influences. Yeah.
I would say the book itself, the novels themselves, I wouldn't class as a horror. I think horrific happen, but I think that there is a big differentiation between horrific acts and the horror genre. If you look at, like, the brutal murder of someone is horrific, but is not a horror. I almost think like a horror is a classification of... I think it began as a classification of creature. And I think has evolved...
Can I interject?
Yeah, I think horror originally was defined by... was the definition or a classification of creature. Because you look at vampires, ghosts and ghouls, devils, demons, Frankenstein's monster was a monster. It was a classification of creature. Whereas now, I would
argue against what. Yeah, I would argue against how you're going with that. I would say, if you're speaking about horror, and it's a really good way to do it, especially when you bring up anime and things like that. Horror is anything that causes or elicits any type of fear, scares, jump scares, blah, 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 psychological, everything else. And the one you guys are talking about, 86, I think is what you said it was called. I would consider psychological horror, and that would be a subgenre, same as like you have like isekais and blah, blah, blah. They're all subgenres of animes. They're not a genre in and of themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because that's what I'm trying to state, I guess, because it's, for me, the best type of horror is psychological horror. That's what I enjoy reading. I don't like gore, generally speaking.
But okay, so just building on that then, would you not say that the horror genre is defined differently dependent on the person reading it? You when you look at like sci-fi and fantasy, when you look at sci-fi and fantasy, and you can sci-fi is like technology that could potentially be a thing in the future, but essentially, and you've got your fantasy, which is things that we've essentially would class as never being something that is going to happen in real life, and is fantastical in nature,
like VR.
Because no, that's sci-fi. Because
VR was initially marked not as sci-fi but as fantasy.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was actually.
right, fair
Which is
enough.
kind of
I
funny.
did not know that. But when you but this is why I'm saying I think there's
I
a
mean, if you think of it in that
when
terms,
it comes
anything that
to
doesn't have a
horror,
science
what I'm trying to say
related
is everyone has a different fear, and so when you're trying to understand what horror is to someone, it's going to vary dramatically. So what one person might find as absolutely terrifying and is their greatest fear, and that's why there's you look at so many fears and everything like that. And I would say that
I fully understand that, but at that point, you still can't go off personal classification. That's why we have a general classification. Because if you go off personal classification, somebody with arachnophobia couldn't watch Harry Potter because of the fucking spider in the woods.
yeah, and
Well,
You see what I'm
horror
saying?
is the intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust.
Yeah,
Which
yes,
is
but
For
why
the
horror, for
this is
instance,
why
is
I'm
a
saying
lot
then
For
more
general
of-
population, though,
yes.
not to a specific individual.
No,
yes.
But then would you then go that horror is technically I don't know, would you say then that horror is technically not a genre and actually it comes as like a subgenre of things in and of itself because the what people find horrific varies so much?
I
but that's
don't
the
know.
thing. We do have a lot of different fears and all of that, but as a race of people, a majority have things like a fear of darkness, for instance. We still do, even in this day and age.
Yeah, but that's
And
a more
fear
of a
of the
survival. That's
unknown
an
in the dark.
evolutionary thing.
Yeah, but
That's an evolutionary thing.
for lack of a better term, we're having a behold a man argument.
Mm.
Which is to say, for those who don't get that reference, every classification is subpar. So you're not wrong, Sam. But for the purposes of this discussion, horror would be like, in a general sense, like what do most people feel horror from? So it's gore or it's being trapped is one of those key horror moments.
So in response to your original question, then do I feel like 86 is horror? I would probably say there are aspects of it in there, but I wouldn't say it is a horror in and of itself. I would say that the things that happened within it were horrific, but wouldn't be classified under the horror genre. I also find that
were the things that happened targeted at the main cast and used to elicit those feelings, then yes, it would be a horror. If there were things that happened just as world building, etc., just to help build the story, then no, it would not be classified as horror. It has to be targeted.
Yeah, but it's kind of both.
There are aspects of both. I mean, you look at. I think one of the big things to take from that, just you continuing to use that series as a reference, the fear of AI taking over. That would not have been a fear 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I don't think. I'm trying to think of when like Terminator and stuff came out.
Terminator was initially classed as a horror.
Yes, it was.
So when you look at,
I don't think 2 was.
Yeah, but when you look at like and this is where we talk about like the evolution of horror, I think it has to evolve with what is considered like societal fears.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be, yeah. But then you go into the in-depth explanation of what would societal fears be. Some people are scared of AI taking over. Some people absolutely love the idea of AI and think that it's completely safe and harmless. You know, you look at like say the step away from religion and onto like space exploration and the unknown in the ocean as well. Like the ocean is a huge fear for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So
that is why it's a fear and not a phobia.
Yeah, and this is where I think we have stepped very much away from and romanticized. That probably did a lot of harm to what would have been the horror genre when you look at like vampires and things. Like, it's very difficult to take a story about vampires or, you know, horrible creatures as horrors when half the readers want to fuck them. Like, it's for use of I'm sorry, it is. Like, it takes away from it if you're like, oh, spooky, let me write it. Like, no, that's not how that works. If something is a horror, you want to get the fuck away from it. You don't want to get on it. It's you know.
I was thinking about something you said earlier, where horror is. I don't know if you said better, but easier to illustrate in film rather than
Yes.
books. So I've had the pleasure of both reading and watching Annihilation, and I respectfully disagree, but it's a different type of horror.
Well, no. So this is a point to have expanded on with that phrase or that statement. It is because the type of horror has changed, I think. When you look at like ghosts and ghouls and everything, and you're talking about horror in like vampires and things, description, like text description or literary description, is much easier to. The moment you visualize that, you take away a lot of the impact of it because we have the limitations of film, I think. So, you know, the use of ropes to make things fly and this, that, the CGI makeup and everything. I think the moment you half of the impact of horror comes from the fact that people will over imagine it in their heads. So when you look at things like older horrors, classic horrors, where, you know, I've seen It and It 2 and things, and
Well,
found them fine. Like, there was to me, there was nothing about them, and the books were horrific. And it's like, okay, because your brain over exaggerates, and that in and of itself, you can almost come up with worse things in your head than you could put on a screen. The difference, though, now with modern modern horror is that because we're looking at things like space, the ocean, like I said, the Invisible Man is the one I will always remember. The idea that the perceived idea that I was constantly looking for things happening on screen purely from the absence of someone. The entire concept being that he could be there, this person could be there at any time, and you would have no idea unless he was to influence the environment around you, can be done so well visually. But if you were to try put that into text, I think it would lack, because it is the fear of caused by a lack of visual that creates that impact.
I feel
so I think
the exact opposite.
Really,
Yes. And I think Carrie is a good example of it, because they were not allowed to show as much of the bad things that happened to her, towards her and stuff, as the book described. So when I watched the movie, I got very disappointed because it wasn't as bad as the book was.
And when did that come out? Was that classed as classic or modern?
Carrie is classic, probably.
And that's my point. Is
they did do a modern remake.
Also,
yes,
it's
they
in the
did
middle. It's not technically old enough to be a classic, but not young
no,
enough to be modern.
It's from 1974.
The book?
Yes, the book is from 1974. It's a horror novel.
Holy crap! They pumped out that movie fast then.
Yeah.
Because the original is from 1976.
78.
Not according to IMDb.
Okay.
So It's why I think like modern remakes of old of like classic horrors, I don't know if they work well.
You brought up It.
Mhm.
So one of the most horrific scenes in It is a scene you cannot film. You can't even imply that fucking scene. And it happens
The
at
Kenny orgy?
Yes. Yes.
Can I say that annoys me?
Yes, please
I
don't
would
get me banned on Twitch on my first ever stream.
no.
Which
We're not.
is-
Okay,
which is
but
why I'm-
can I say
I'm
that?
tiptoeing around the
talk
subject.
around it.
Yes.
Like eggshells, please.
But this is why I say it because that's classed as classic, isn't it?
No, it's
No.
not old enough.
Is it not?
No.
Right. Okay.
Apparently, because classic has to be 50 years old. This is only 48.
Then that's okay. I
don't
have
like that
issues with that.
classification.
I have issues with that.
Yes, so do I, Sam. So
I have very big issues with that. I would like to get rid of that classification because I think it would be classed as classic.
How old did you say it was?
48.
48.
No, wait. Is
No,
it
it's
exactly
30.
50?
It's
Yeah,
it
so
was published in 86.
also for the classification, it has to be
Oh,
at
we're talking-
least
sorry.
50 years old to 100 years old.
Ah, okay. And sorry, I was thinking about Carrie. I got my dates mixed up. But yes, okay, it's about 30 years old.
Okay, so to rehash the statement, then are we based on that? I would say then that certain. I'd say the subgenres of horror. I think because would you class is it classed as psychological or is it classed as supernatural horror?
Well,
Or is it
say
both?
supernatural. Yeah, but
Both.
supernatural
Both.
with psychological
Which is-
as a subgenre.
Yeah,
Mainly because the
It's
creature
ca-
uses the
it's ca-
psychological.
Yes.
yeah, that
Yeah, is
It is first
Carrie
and foremost a creature.
Carrie
So
is almost
supernatural.
guaranteed to be psychological
Yes.
okay?
because that the like
That's all human, isn't
Did-
it?
That is
it-
all human.
it's kinda sorta Carrie is special, but
Yes. Well,
We're all special.
but
We're
yes,
still human.
but we do not
somewhat.
have ESP
no.
as far as I know.
The ADHD disagrees.
However, and King does this a lot. Like the build up of his stories is the horrific shit where things happen to the main character. And then you have the culmination where, in Carrie's case, she snaps.
I've got a question for you, just to kind of deviate a little bit. What do people find scarier, the absence of something or the presence of something?
Depends on the something.
Depends
Yeah.
if something they can explain.
But yeah, I
As in,
think
like-
that depends on the something.
Or I guess, or if it's something they can explain away.
Yeah, I think for me, I can deal with horror if I know outright it doesn't exist. So when you talk about monsters and vampires and things like that, I can explain that away in my head in the fact that it is a fantasy of a sort, and therefore it's not real. Whereas I very much struggle with psychological horror because 9 times out of 10 it's based on the horrific nature that a human can possess, and we've seen it. You know, you see true crime documentaries and you see serial killers and things like that, and know that people are out there that you could have walked past on the street that could be doing that very thing to somebody, and that I can't. That to me is far worse.
To me, I would say the absence of something elicits a bigger fear than the presence of something.
Again, I think that
Personally,
depends on
because
what the something is.
No, if something is in front of me, it can be it can't be more than it is. And I know that sounds like a very obvious statement. I can't overimagine something if it is in front of me, because it's there. It is what it is. There is no changing that. So when you look at like, you know, ghost schools, those types of things, I think it's why I don't struggle with gore too much, because it is what it is. It's right in front of me. It's an event that's happening, and I can't overimagine it. But the moment my imagination's let loose on something or on the lack of something, I can't, because my brain will continue to evolve it past what it should be. And I think the lack of something for me is stronger. It's like when you imagine sort of, you know, the Invisible Man, again, I'll go back to that one. The lack of his presence in front of me, I was like, I'm waiting, and I can't. I've never seen the person in the film. I don't know what they are. I know they're a man, and that's literally it. And it's like you start evolving it. The same with like anything that involves deep space or the ocean. If it's not present physically and you haven't been able to quantify it as a physical thing in front of you, your brain can continue to develop it until it becomes, you know, overwhelming in its nature. At least personally. If that makes sense.
I think this is a thing where, when you said, is it classed as horror if someone doesn't find it scary? I think that's where... I think horror is horror. I think as a genre, it is horror. And people are going to have different tolerances, the same way that we have with movies. There are some people who can sit through the scariest of scary films and not blink. Won't bother them in the slightest. And yet some people...
And then you have Ari.
And then you have me, yeah, absolutely, who jumps at kids' films.
Horror shits me. Horror shits me up in like both aspects of it. I'm not saying neither one, like one is scary and one isn't, but I think one has more of an impact.
Yeah, but I also think that's subjective.
So,
which is why I asked, because it was less of a... if that's been misunderstood, apologies. It was less of a generalized thing and more of like a personal thing to each person. Which do you guys find films where the psychological manipulation or whatever is, or the fear is developed because of the lack of a presence of something? Or do you find having the physical thing in front of you to read about or watch like more impactful? Or more scary, I should say.
For me, and this is tangential, but it ties in, the threat of something is worse than the act actually occurring.
Mm-hmm.
So the implication of something. I have a scene in Hostel, which I will not describe, involving a blowtorch.
Oh.
And
need to describe it, and I'm shuddering.
And I can watch everything in that scene without feeling particularly queasy, but the fact that they linger on the blowtorch for the first 15 seconds or so makes me incredibly uncomfortable.
You're like that with eyes.
Yeah, I don't like I said, I don't like horror in any way, shape or form. I won't watch a horror movie. I don't like people telling me about things they've watched in horror movies. I am very easily skeeved out and scared. Mm-hmm. But I also have a particular thing about eyes, that even if it's in something that is absolutely not a horror movie, I will completely turn away. I'm also just not good with gore in general, so I tend to stay away from things that are overly aggressive.
Oh, your eyes are my Achilles tendon.
Mm-hmm.
Basically.
I'm not great with any of it, but there is something specific about eyes and anything happening to an eye.
Mm-hmm.
That
have you all watched Deadpool yet?
Oh,
have you all watched Deadpool yet?
No, we can't because I don't know how much time passes to class that as a spoiler if we're saying it online, and I haven't marked this as a spoiler.
No, there is a scene in there in essentially which someone metaphysically, so it doesn't, I wouldn't say harms them in any way, but essentially phases their hand through someone's head, and the like fingers are coming out of people's eyes and all sorts of just,
I
and
remember.
it's like you were fucking out of there. You were like, I cannot watch this.
To be fair, we've gone to the cinema twice in the last year. Both times to not see anything that was even
it was
classed as
it was
a horror
Poirot,
film.
wasn't it?
And both of them
Yeah.
ended up being, to me, and I say that in bold, to me, horrific.
Yeah, we watched Poirot, didn't we?
Yeah, we did Deadpool versus Wolverine this year, and I spent good chunks of it backwards in my seat. And then we watched Poirot's Thingy in Venice. And I was not expecting them. I grew up watching Poirot. I've read all of Agatha Christie's books. I've seen this one before. However, Kenneth Branagh decided that his reimagining of this one was going to be more horror themed than murder mystery. And yeah, between the fact that they had creepy little children's voices speaking, and that just, I mean, I think as a parent that just puts me off.
Yeah.
Babies crying.
No, this was like little
No,
kiddie.
no, no,
It
I
was
mean,
the,
no,
you know,
this-
That is House
gosh,
Mouse.
what's the
I will say it was quite funny because Harry sat there like shaking in her seat, and I'm getting really ticked off because the voice of the little girl in that was it was coming from a speaker on one side of the room, and so I'd fucking like located where that shit was. And every time it did, I'm like staring at the speaker, like, if you're going to try and immerse me, do it on both sides, because this is triggering an auditory issue for me. And I was just getting mad. I was just like, you fucking stop triggering the autism, please.
So basically, you were both sitting in your chairs shaking, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, I was angry. She was scared.
I jumped.
I will say, I grew up like watching. I remember watching like Ghost Adventures, taps and things like ghost hunting shows. Is something me and my dad were obsessed with watching. And I found them, like, I guess like it's meant to be for entertainment and everything. I found them really interesting and funny and cool and stuff, and I loved them. Dolls. There is something about dolls can fuck off if we're talking about like horror.
Even if
the
you
idea
take away the aspect of them coming to life or anything like that, they're just creepy by default.
Yeah, no, they are. And the thing is dolls in the idea, like, there's something about something having a face, and the feeling of it watching you that is just, it's horrible. And that whole like, I'm gonna turn away for a second and look back and it's moved. It's just not like. There is, and it's the old like Victorian dolls, and it's like the baby dolls and stuff that you get that are like meant to be like like actual babies, not like cuddly toys and stuff. Like, it has to be proper dolls, and they are for me terrifying.
Gotta get my brother to take a picture when he goes to my grandma's house next time. An entire room with nothing but Victorian age dolls.
That's horrible.
About them.
There is, I swear to God, if I think one of them
to be incredibly lifelike. And
I think that might be it. The fact that something is almost lifelike, but there is just something off.
The Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
Wasn't there that TV program? Was it Humans or something, where there was the AI bots that were like perfect replicas of human? Yeah, is that what it was? I remember it being on like Channel 4 or some shit.
There was Almost Human, which was the TV show equivalent of the game Detroit Become Human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
So
it had him from Primeval in it.
So, just fun little side note here. I read somewhere, so it was probably on Tumblr or something.
Legitimate sources.
No. That like the uncanny valley is very interesting for one very simple reason. Because everyone has this. Everyone. Which means that there has to be an evolutionary reason for why. So what is the evolutionary reason for why we feel scared for something that looks human but isn't?
An object's degree of resemblance to a human being, the emotional response to it. Right. I think
This was more a fun thought experiment thing.
I think it's
And I
because
find
you
it,
can
like,
feel.
fun.
I think you can feel a level of wrongness.
Yeah.
you can tell when something's
Because it's
alive. You can
almost
immediately tell
something,
when something's
but it's
alive.
not. No, but I don't
I
think
think
it's just
it's-
about it being alive. I think it's also a case of with anything. It's like the phenomenon where people can tell when something is a different brand of something, even without the packaging, because there's something about it that isn't 100% correct. It can be a very near copy, but
Not everyone's autistic like us.
It's familiarity.
No, that's fair. That is fair.
It's familiarity. Say it feels unfamiliar, and therefore, because that is the thing, it's a lot. Again, a lot of fears are unknown or unfamiliar. I think the unknown makes it unfamiliar, and therefore you're like, this is wrong. Again, for me, it's the eyes of dolls. I find it a lot of like. I find eyes to be incredibly terrifying, and I get I'm autistic and eye contact is difficult, but there is something about like looking in the mirror at your own eyes long enough, and then you start like questioning shit, and it's like there is something about, and I know they say like there is a reason people say the eyes are the window to the soul, because there is something about, if someone dies, for example, the eyes glaze over, right? And you know for a fact that they're gone because the eyes change. And it's like, it is something about the eyes, and you can tell when there is something behind them and when there isn't.
Life.
I think that's it for me.
So I was gonna chastise you guys for making up a essay's worth of questions, but I've been running through
Following
them,
along?
And we've gone through several of these.
We
we
have,
have,
actually,
but I
within-
found
yeah.
one which we haven't.
Hmm.
How do different books portray monsters? And do you prefer creatures with a tragic backstory or pure evil villains?
I'm going to hop in on this one and ask back if you want villain, as in, are we talking pure villain, no redemption, no nada? Or are we just saying it's the villain of the story?
Are we differentiating between antagonist and villain? Is
Yes.
that what you're asking? Okay. I was thinking antagonist for that
Okay.
question.
If it's an antagonist, I'm more than happy to. I would actually prefer them to have a tragic backstory because, again, I think that comes from I can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can go, yeah, okay, that'd probably make me a murderous monster too. But if you're talking pure villainy, then I wouldn't want. And I think it's your morals.
It's M itself.
essentially.
It's M itself versus Xenos, is what you're saying.
No, because I liked both of them.
Really?
Yes.
No, but wait.
Xenos was fucking pointless.
Doesn't matter.
Absolutely, we're not going to get into that because
We're
it's
not
Final Fantasy.
talking about Final
Will
Fantasy.
kick off.
You can leave
But-
Final Fantasy out of one of our book clubs for God's sake.
No, because it's the primary. There is the villain antagonist. What would you call Emmett?
An antagonist.
Yeah, so his entire thing is he's trying to. You think he's just trying to destroy the planet you're on, essentially, and actually, it is he's lived 1,000 lifetimes, and has lost every single person he loves, and you are essentially a reflection, a very poor like shattered reflection of the people he once knew. And so to him, your life is obsolete, and he just wants to rejoin everything together so he can have his life back. And you sit there and you go, I want to hate you for this, but you're thinking on a scale much grander than we are. And not only that, you're in a lot of pain. You aren't doing this malicious, like,
Yeah,
I want to say maliciously as in, yeah, it's not spiteful, it's not hatred, it's literally just this is a means to an end. And I think there's a quote that he says, and it's like, he essentially goes, I'm gonna weigh up your life and see if you're worth saving. And he's like, you could never have been worth saving because you are such a minuscule imitation of what I know as perfect.
So,
And that's why your life is not even, it can't, to him, it couldn't be considered a tragedy or a horrible thing, because
that we weren't going to talk about and have still ended up talking about.
yeah, but it couldn't be a tragedy because
Continues talking.
there was no value to, no, but it's the prime example of what you're talking about.
No, it absolutely
okay,
isn't in any way, shape, or form.
wait. Okay, so recentering. For me, there are very few stories where a pure villain works.
Or evil for the sake of evil.
Yeah, so evil for the sake of evil. So this isn't horror, but Eddings is very good at portraying like the good versus evil, where good is quite literally just fucking good, and evil is stagnation and like everything Eddings thinks is bad. In those stories, it works. In horror, I don't think it does. So, Carrie, that story wouldn't work if she was just pure evil. It doesn't work.
She wouldn't have snapped.
No, because motivation is key.
Yeah.
There is a motivation for everything. There has to be.
Yeah.
Because if there isn't,
motivation can come from being a being of pure evil.
Well, kind of, sort of. But even Pennywise isn't driven by just being evil. Pennywise is driven by survival.
I think
it doesn't want to die.
Okay, I think on the tragic backstory part, I think to make it horror, they can have a tragic backstory, but there can't be redemption. Because I think if redemption is possible, then I don't think that would count as horror.
But is this why do you think then that this is why things like vampires and stuff have become romanticized over feared?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Because there's a
redemption.
Yeah.
Because you can.
But is that because people crave a tragic backstory because they want understanding?
I mean, it depends on. I think it depends on the audience. Some people will crave a tragic backstory because it builds character. You know, it's very difficult to.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You're always going to feel a bit more for someone who's really had to go through it, and whether they do end up being the good guy who's had a really hard start, or the bad guy who's done terrible things because of terrible things. That's always going to feel more real than if you have a character who is like sunshine and roses. Everything has been perfect from start to finish because there's no reason to really care about them. There's no emotional grab point if it's just like, oh, I grew up in a very privileged life. I had wonderful parents and everything was put in front of me and everything was wonderful and all my friends were wonderful and my whole life everything has gone my way, and then I died happily at 90 years of age with no illnesses and peacefully in my sleep, and you're just like, oh great, lucky for you.
Personally, I prefer horror where it's almost like a clash of ideals. By which I mean there is a reason for behavior, where that is biological, psychological, whatever. There has to be a reason. And I think some of the best stories come where that reason is a conflict against the other side. Because what you understand as evil, and therefore the acts that are committed are evil and horrific, coming from we're two different sides of the coin.
See, I think for me, I like things that question your morality. Because
Yeah.
I think it's
I like a lot of the lit RPGs do that, where light is bad and dark is good. I like when they do that.
Yeah.
Vendors like that.
Great.
Well, it's good is subjective to the individual.
Yeah.
That's what makes, to me,
Shady,
if it's
talking lit RPGs, you'll like our theme chat in a couple of weeks because we're doing one on lit RPGs. Just for that gentle plug of future.
I
I would also like to point out, I've read a lot. I get all of the arguments, but at the same time, I even like the villains that are evil for evil's sake. To kill somebody just because it's easier instead of trying to find another route, I'm for it.
Yeah. Same.
No, I mean, a pragmatic villain is amazing, because that's basically what you described. It's easier to kill you. No Country for Old Men. I can't remember the antagonist's name. And Anton, I think, something like that. Is a pure pragmatist. It's easier to kill you, so I will. And he's a very fun villain, and he doesn't have a redemption point. Like, he is just evil.
The other side is where, like, the other side of it is obviously where I have had this many experiences where I've tried alternate routes and it hasn't worked. I've tried Civil Path, I've tried, forgiving and forgetting, moving on, and each time it has failed. And this is now what I believe to be my only action of recourse, because, or whatever the fuck the phrasing is, because I don't think that's right. But it's the only action that I feel left open to me because there is nothing more I can do. And it's like, yeah, okay, if your driving factor is you've had X number of experiences where you've tried to be the bigger, better person, and ultimately it's failed not because of you, but because of other shitty people, and that in and of itself has turned you into a shitty person who is now doing this for survival, or because there is no other alternate route. Like, yeah, like I can't. I want to sit there and go, I disagree with you, but
I understand.
I can't. Like, yeah, you're not technically. I guess you're not wrong. Like, it's yeah. There has to be a motivation for villainy, because again, villainy a lot of the times is just extreme forms of survival. It's also a result of experience, environment. When real factors play into someone's situation, I think it's great.
Ari, you said a tragic backstory is fine unless they get redeemed. What does that mean? Redemption in this case.
I think there's an element of what you as a person can do under an extreme set of circumstances that can be, and I'm putting emphasis on the can be, forgiven.
You're talking about having consequence removed.
Not necessarily.
No.
Because I think you can still have consequences. If you commit a crime and you go to prison, that doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't had the consequence of committing that crime, but it also doesn't mean that you, just because you've had the consequence, are incapable of redemption. You can be a terrible person.
Well, I'm saying you are relieved of all consequences of your actions.
No.
That would be.
That
is that not
redemption.
No, I think there is an element, there is a limited amount of things that you can do because of circumstances that have happened to or around you that can still be redeemed. That can be.
What do you mean by define redeemed?
Yes, that's
Because
I'm
that's what
equally
I'm struggling
confused
to
now.
understand.
Becoming a contributing person in society.
No, I don't even.
So being
I don't even
relieved of
think-
consequence.
No, I don't even.
Well,
think
no,
that
not
far.
You still
necessarily.
I
have
think-
consequences for what you did, but after you've gone through those consequences, you have
You
a
switch
chance
sides.
of.
I don't even think it goes as far as switching sides. I think for me, it is a case of morality is not solid.
Of course.
And I don't
It is.
think that it can be. I don't think you can. I'm trying to think how to. I can. It makes sense in my head, and I'm trying to get that into words to make sense.
Right, let me Google the definition of
externally.
redemption. So redemption, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the action of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil, or the action of regaining or gaining possession of something in exchange for a payment or clearing a debt.
Well, yeah, that's like.
So are you saying, like, there is a point that you can't go if you go beyond a certain point, there is no forgiveness for what you've done?
Yeah.
Right. So
I think
it's being forgiven for acts that are unforgivable.
I think that's the bit. I think the term unforgivable is subjective.
Yeah, obviously.
And I think that there are people in stories and in reality that have committed terrible, terrible things, but I still think for some of them, redemption is possible.
But again, what are you classing as redemption? Because is it being forgiven for what they've done?
I'm not talking in the sense of religious redemption where it is, well, you're still going to heaven, you're fine. I'm talking in the sense of in whichever way it fits within that circumstance, whether it's in the public image, whether it is forgiveness for themselves, whether it is in the eyes of their loved ones or whatever. That's the joy of something
So
like redemption.
it's forgiveness. That's your classing redemption as being forgiven for what they've done.
No.
It's not. Again, it's not so much forgiveness.
Atonement.
Yeah, I think you can accept. I think it's acceptance, not forgiveness. I think there are certain cases where you can accept what was done and accept the reasons for it and allow that person to then continue on with their life no longer committing. It's not a case of like, oh, I accept that this is the way you are, now please continue. It's a case of you can accept that happened and those things were done and you move on. It's not necessarily forgiveness because you can accept something while not forgiving it. And I don't always.
I'm so confused because I feel like you've described forgiveness and consequence there.
No, but
No.
okay. So
I'm getting confused.
wait.
Consequences. If I punch you and you punch me back, that's a consequence of me punching you. That's
Yeah, but consequence can also be consequence. That's a very consequence can also be you being accepted back into society. Consequence can be let off for good behaviour. Like there are, it's what
no consequence would not be being let off for good behaviour. Consequence is the action that stems from. It's the reaction to the action. So consequence being let out for good behaviour is a consequence of good behaviour.
And consequence would be going to prison, the death sentence.
And I went to prison. The prison is the consequence of my action.
Yeah, no, but but I'm saying. So what are you defining then as someone being redeemed? Because you haven't given a proper example yet, and I'm confused by that.
Again, it's circumstantial.
Yeah, but
Unfortunately.
okay. My understanding, and Ari can correct me if I'm wrong,
Go
and
ahead.
Une can jump down my throat if I'm wrong. Is a combination of understanding and sympathy is redemption. I understand what you did, why you did it, and I sympathize, and we are gonna let bygones be bygones. You carry on with your life. So, extreme example, you killed someone to protect your kid. It wasn't classed as self-defense. You got put in jail. You served your time. We are done.
Yeah. And then they have the ability to seek redemption for themselves because
The
they've had the
Grinch.
consequence of their actions.
The
Yeah,
The Grinch
I
is
mean,
actually a
Grinch-
very good shout.
Yeah.
But they've had the consequence of their actions
So
in the fact that they committed...
redemption is a personal act and not an act. It's a personal act, is what you're saying.
Not necessarily, because it can be...
I'm getting so confused by this.
No, but okay. So you can forgive yourself. That doesn't mean society or your loved ones or the people you have done harm to.
And people can work for generations for redemption and never achieve it. Because... And people can work for very little
But again,
amount of time
I'm
and
still
achieve it.
struggling to understand
again,
redemption
because redemption is circumstantial. It depends on what we're talking about exactly. If it is, I, grew up in a war zone and my neighbours and my parents and my siblings were all killed, and so I, for lack of a better term, became an anti-hero and went around killing people. Technically, I'm still doing something wrong. However, after many years, I'd killed off everyone I was, my bloodlust was sated for those things. And now I'm building orphanages. Well, there you go. They're redeeming themselves in some way. That might be to fulfill their own self-redemption. Because
that makes absolutely no sense in my head. You can't...
Have you ever...
There is not a payment system. You can't...
Well,
No,
actually,
that's the problem, Sam.
Technically speaking, actually, in
Yes,
a lot of cultures and religions, there is 100% a payment system.
No. Wait, stop. Religion, culture doesn't work on Sam.
No,
We
this
know,
is
wait. We
I
know
was gonna
this.
say.
However,
I get this. This is probably a personal thing.
No. However, we use this every day in our own society, and it's called the judicial system. It is quite literally a
years of penance.
Scale. Yeah, it's a scale. It's you have done X, your punishment is Y.
For excellence.
Yeah, but each act.
No, it's not each act. No, it's not each act. It's severity of act.
Yeah.
No. I was going to say each act is judged independently of each other.
No, not necessarily.
No,
that's why you get. That's why you get.
No.
Like when you look at like murder trials, each murder is classed as an independent murder, is it not?
No, not necessarily.
No.
That,
they compound.
Yeah, sometimes they're compounded. Sometimes, depending on who or why, can have differing levels of severity.
I'm not saying severity. I'm saying.
No, I could be charged for 2 murders as one charge. It all depends on how they prosecute.
Yeah.
Okay, I find that each one should be treated independently.
But also, again,
welcome to the justice system, buddy.
No, but this is what I'm saying. When you talk about redemption, then I dislike personally the idea of it's like a payment system. If I just pay off enough of my debt is cleared. Like, no, there's not.
Let me bring something up that I always found funny. Speeding is a crime, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
If you're rich enough, why wouldn't you just speed all the time?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, because
the poor can't. Right, the poor can't. The rich can.
No, same with parking fines. Parking fines are rich people's pay to park. Because essentially, well, I can park here all day and I'm only going to get a £30 fine if I pay it in 7 days. Well, that's cheaper than paying for an actual parking space, so I'll do that.
Yep.
And again, unfortunately, you have things
I'm
like
talking-
there are
I'm
states in
talking
America
about-
where they have the 3-strike system, where you can get caught shoplifting at 14, and then get caught speeding at 17, and then do something relatively minor again, but because it's your 3rd strike, you get a prison sentence. So therefore, the severity of the crimes did not match the consequences given. So it is... But, going back to the original point of redemption, it is a circumstantial thing because it depends on what the redemption is you're seeking, first and foremost. If it is for yourself, if it is from your God, if it is from your family or your loved ones, if it is from society as a whole, it's obviously going to be then dependent on what you are doing to seek redemption. But essentially, you have to think of it as redemption is making up for your wrong, in whatever manner that may be, depending on what it is.
But okay.
Some things are redeemable. If you take it at a very base level, if you have a bad day and you're really stressed out and you snap at me, that might upset me, but that is still a redeemable act because you can make it up to me. You can have the consequence of me having a go at you or telling you that you've upset me or whatever the consequence of that is, but it's a redeemable act. Whereas if you walked up and stabbed me for no reason, in my eyes, not quite so redeemable, but technically speaking, in the eyes of the law, it is a redeemable act because you would have your consequence of going to prison, and then after that, it's done.
No, I don't.
No, I don't know if this is
I
helpful,
don't.
but
My-
I found this. A redemption arc in books specifically is when a character with significantly flawed attributes and or behavior learns to overcome their flaw and be a better person. That doesn't mean they're a good person, but a better person.
Yeah, it just means better than what they were previously. So someone with a nasty ego learns to be humble. Doesn't necessarily
Ebenezer
make them...
Scrooge is an excellent example of a
Absolutely.
redemption arc.
That's
The
fair.
Grinch.
Grinch,
Yes,
yeah.
The
even
Grinch.
better.
Draco Malfoy
So
in Harry Potter for a pop culture reference.
Yeah, okay.
I wanna, since Titus brought it up, I wanna actually bring up the original quote. But Ari's gonna yell at me if I bring up where it's from, so I'm just gonna tell you the quote. If the penalty for a crime is a fine, then that law only exists for the lower class.
Yeah, that's just a fact.
No,
No,
that-
the point I'm trying to me personally, a person is neither good nor bad, and there is a scale as such. They are judged independently on each action that is carried out.
That's the thing, a good person can
Listen
do
here,
bad
Anubis.
things.
Yeah, and in that moment, they are not a good person. They are a bad person.
But they
People
can-
can be
but they
both
can
a good and
become-
bad person simultaneously
Yes.
because again, that is independent to the individual that is judging them.
So then how does the action of bad things for good reasons?
That's what I just said to you.
No.
It's independent
Are you-
of the
but are
person
you a
that is
bad
It's
person
independent of the
if-
person that is judging them.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, are you a bad person if you are doing bad things, but for good reasons?
That's not up to me to decide. That's up to the people observing me to decide.
Okay, but I'm asking you, if I am a good person, and then I go and do bad things for...
No, because there is no such thing
No,
as a
but
good
wait.
and bad person.
No, but okay.
Okay, so
No,
just
no,
for the...
wait. The question is, do the ends justify the means?
Absolutely.
Yes, that is the question. That
And
is
if
the
the
core
answer
question.
is yes, the person is redeemable. If the
If I have
answer
to
is
steal
no,
to feed my kid, yeah, I will do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but
So,
then technically
And
if
the
it's-
only
That's
No, but
but that's
okay.
a redeemable act because you did it for a justifiable reason.
But I'm not
My only
asking
issue with
anyone
that
for
argument is-
redemption. I'm not asking anyone for redemption. I'm doing what I deem as necessary,
Wait.
and it's
A
up to the
redemption-
person in front
so-
of me to judge whether they agree with that act
But
or not.
also something.
And that's
being a
that's what
redeemable
I
act
was saying
doesn't
though.
mean
It's
you're
not
asking
necessarily
for
about
it.
personal redemption. You might not be seeking redemption, but society or your peers or whoever's judging you is offering you redemption and giving you redemption because they see you as better than what you were. Thus, redemption.
Yeah,
But
so,
I'm not. But I
yeah,
wouldn't
but
be a bad person for stealing to feed my child if I
Well,
had no
Technically
food.
speaking, you are committing a crime, which
Which
is
is
by
why-
default.
At the time of the
Bad
crime,
act.
you were a bad person.
Yes.
Yeah, in the eyes of
fact.
this is what I'm saying. But this is where I sit there and go, there is no such thing as a good or bad person. There are good or bad actions, and they are.
Yeah, which essentially.
No, there's not even good or bad actions. There are actions that are deemed good or bad by the people who observe them.
Yes, which is why I'm saying.
Which is why I'm saying redemption is stupid. Each act should be judged individually, and it can only be judged by the people around them.
Yes, and
it can't be judged by the individual themselves.
Is going to come out with an outcome, and the outcome is redemption or none. That's the answer to the outcome of judgment, is whether it is redeemable or it isn't. A bad person doing bad things for bad reasons, who is only ever going to do... So somebody who decides to take up a
There
life
isn't
of
a
crime,
bad person, there is a person who did something that people deem bad.
Right, when you talk about prisoners, okay, you look at a possibility of... What's the word I'm looking for?
Recidivism?
Reoffending?
That's it, reoffending, thank you.
Yeah, that's recidivism.
Yeah, that was the specific word that was in my brain. Yeah, you look at the possibility of reoffending. So you will look at a prisoner and see how they respond to the consequences, but also how they respond to what they did. And if they seem like they have understood what they did was wrong and are working to not be that person anymore, their likelihood of reoffending and therefore redeeming themselves is...
Or what if what they did wasn't wrong?
No, but wait. Okay.
We're getting there, Sam. Wait.
Let me... If you have a person who does terrible things and relishes in it, or has absolutely 100% plans to continue the minute they are able to do terrible things and will never change. There is nothing that can step into their life, be it man, beast, or God, that can make them turn off that path. They are irredeemable. There is no redemption for them. That is a person that, whether you like to say that people can or can't be bad or good, that person may not have started out as a bad person, and I don't believe that people are born bad. But they are and will continue to be a bad person because they became one and decided that they enjoyed it, or it fit them, or they were just happy to keep doing what they were doing, and so they're going to keep doing what they're doing. They are an
irredeemable person doing bad things.
But okay.
Okay, but how many bad things does it take for a person to do for bad reasons before they inherently become a bad person?
No,
I feel like this is a discussion for another time.
No. I wanna.
Eli's like, I've got a point. Let me make my point.
I do have a point, because the issue we're having is a scope problem. For you, Sam, no individual person can be wholly good or bad, which is why society collectively have come up with a certain set of actions which, on average, are detrimental to society. If we allow these things to happen, society will crumble.
Just to preface, because I realise we're on a stream, I'm not an anarchist or anything like that. I do promise.
I'm currently googling how to explain redemption to an autistic person.
Yeah, thank you. I understand the point of the justice system and everything, and its entire function is there has to be rules in which society abides by or society collapses. Right? There has to be a measurement in which we go, okay, these actions are detrimental to society, and there is a consequence to actions, because there is always a consequence to action. However, my point is that the point I'm trying to make here is no one is good or evil, and actions are either good or evil, depending on the person judging them.
Can I ask a question real quick for you, Sam?
In terms of
think-
like,
Hold on. Do you think there's any actions Adolf Hitler could have taken to not be a bad person?
No, he did terrible, terrible, terrible things.
Is there any actions he could have taken to not be a bad person? If everything is based on
He could have
actions,
not done the shit he did.
no, I mean after the fact.
Yeah, so
After
he's
he
done
did
them.
all of those bad things, is there anything he could have done to not be a bad person?
The consequence of what he did, no, you don't get my point. The consequence of what he did was incredibly wrong. He did he did thousands of incredibly bad things. He is a person who did incredibly, incredibly bad things. Right. My point being is that I'm not saying consequence isn't a thing, right? This is my point, is that consequence is still a thing, 100%. Whether something is judged right or wrong is based on the people observing that act.
Yes.
That's my point. And in that, he did horrible things, and he was incredibly wrong for what he did. He was a person who did horrifically bad things. That's where I think that there is a...
No, but okay.
Where I go,
No,
well,
wait,
if a thief, go back to if a thief is stealing food because they're starving.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem. Is you're working on the basis that the only reason that a person like
if I murder someone in self-defense, am I? If I kill someone in someone in self-defense, am I a bad person?
No, you're a good person that did a bad thing.
But
you could be a good person.
No. And this is where I disagree with you. I am a person who took action that you are either deeming good or bad. I am neither a good or bad person for what I did in that situation. I took the necessary action. Whether that is deemed good or bad is...
You took the necessary action in your own mind.
Yeah, is going to be deemed by the people observing it, but that is going to vary person to person. Someone's going to turn a pacifist could and my point is that redemption
is highly individualized. Yes.
Yeah, because to not believe in redemption, you have to not believe in judgment, which is essentially what you're saying, is that judgment is a construct. And essentially it is. We have judgment in religion, we have judgment in society, we have personal judgment, and it is subjective. It's going to be different. I might think I'm a terrible person and everyone around me might think I'm a really great person. It's the subject of where your judgment sits. And yes, so like with Shady's answer, society as a whole can say that on their judgment, people can be bad to their core. Not necessarily born that way, but have, through their actions and continued repetitive actions, become a person that has no redemption. Because there are people who have done things where, whether it is in the eye of society as a whole, or in the eye of the law, or in the eyes of God, or whatever, are irredeemable. That you can do things that are so bad that taint you as a person. And that's where I think you and I differ.
That's just natural consequence.
But if natural consequence can taint you as a person, then you then become a bad person.
No, you are a person doing a bad thing, and if you continue to make the choice to you're a person who's done a thing that people deem bad. Okay, if you continue to do those things because you enjoy them or whatever, you are going to you are
a bad person.
Because
how
you're still...
did book club devolve into
I don't know, this is what happened.
No, stop! Let me finish the fucking sentence! How did it devolve into a philosophy 101 class? Because this is what we're talking about. It's philosophy.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. I'm not, I enjoyed this.
I love that our book clubs start as book clubs, and I love the fact that in our first stream, we've had swearing and conversations about Hitler. It's just...
Yeah.
Everything comes back to Hitler!
I should have clipped that.
I'd like to
And you
point out.
usually say it takes about 42 minutes, so I think we passed that one.
We did.
So that's nice.
What were you gonna say, Shady?
Unlike Sam, I am an anarchist. I don't give a shit about anything.
I love law, but I love law. I love consequence. I understand them because they are natural concepts. Like there is a order to things, there is a consequence to things. Because redemption is so subjective, I sit there and I struggle with the idea that there is this like payment system for shit. There is a consequence for things. You do not escape that consequence, and existing within that consequence is that is the only way redemption could work. Is that you exist within the consequence of your action.
Yes.
There is no
but
paying it off.
No, but no. See, that's the bit where I feel like you're getting lost. Is
No, because
No,
what you
because
said was
in the order of things.
Let Ari finish.
In the order of things, you have action, consequence, possibility. Like that's the what comes next. That is the part where you have is redemption possible. So if you take half the examples we've had tonight, if I kill someone in self-defense and I do my time for that, or I receive my consequence for that, have I got the possibility of redeeming myself so that that is not my entire being? If I do something atrocious for the pure relishment of the power it makes me feel, and then I have my consequences of that, am I then able to redeem myself? And
No, because the natural consequences of that would not give you the chance of doing that.
Yeah,
that's the whole.
That's not a sentence.
No,
the
if you
problem
if,
is with the
if I
consequences is that, for instance, in this case, going to prison, that is not an end all be all consequence, because for some people they should have stayed in jail for the rest of their life, but because of what they did, they only got, or rather for how the system works, they only got X amount of years. And then they get out. So
and
they
then
have,
they have a choice.
Technically gone through their consequences of their actions.
Mm-hmm.
But now they have a choice. The consequences happened, and then you are faced with a choice. Do I want redemption? Do I want to redeem myself? Whoever the subject of the redemption, if it's personal or societal or in the eyes of someone specific, do I want redemption or do I not? And someone who doesn't will then choose, because it is about choice. Everyone has free will. I'm going to choose to keep doing bad things. Maybe I'm going to escalate and do worse things. Or,
then you get given the following consequence.
Yeah, but
yeah,
okay.
but that doesn't change the fact.
Repeated actions, who a majority deem as negative, makes you a bad person. Again, we are scoping here. So, like if you push me when you're rushing to the train, then I personally might see you as a bad person because you weren't paying attention and you were being rude. But when we're talking about redemption arcs, we are talking about societal levels where you have done an action or several actions, and whether or not society has deemed that you are done with your consequence, i.e., jail, we are still stuck here at the individual level where you could have killed someone, served your time, and you, from society's perspective, are done. You're redeemed. Nothing else needs to be done. But from the people closest to the person you killed, you are far from it. And like these two different scopes clash a lot.
And actually, to bring it down onto the level of what you use, because actually it's a great example on not such an aggressive scale as committing murder or genocide or whatever we also have had this evening. If you're rushing for a train and you bump into someone, that's your action. And that person is now going to view you badly because you've smacked into them. They haven't done anything wrong, you've smacked into them. Now, if they say, hey, and so there's your consequences, it's now been brought to attention that you've done something wrong. They might have said something else to you, they might have had a go at you, there is a consequence to that action of you bumping into them. If you respond to that with, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going, that's my bad. In the eyes of that person, you may now be redeemed. Or to yourself, you might feel better that you've apologised for something you didn't mean to do, or that even if you did, you did it. So therefore, redemption. If you turn around to that person, stick your middle finger up and tell them to go fuck themselves, you're not attempting, I like the wave there, Shady. You're not attempting redemption in their eyes or your own. In fact, you're choosing in that moment to revel in being that person's bad guy. Doesn't make you inherently bad, and we're not talking in that level of a philosophical... Oh my god, I've got my first silly thing. Cheap viewers. If I go to this thing... No. Now I've got to work out how to do the deletey thing. How do I delete?
You also know you shouldn't look the autistic one have the buttons.
I'm not autistic. I have ADHD. I still don't know
You
how the
should
buttons
probably
Same
get a
point.
mod for your channel, by the way.
We're writing about 4 books to prove that he's not the same point at all. Get you one in a minute. Go away just now. I worked out how to do this a moment ago, and now I've forgotten how to do it.
While she's figuring that out, by the way, how's this look so far?
Yeah, for the people...
Ooh,
I don't think anyone is
nice.
actually watching
Very
us.
nice.
But for the people that might be watching the stream that can't see, that Shady is painting a very, very cool mask that he's 3D printed. Ah, there it is. Mod view. Yes. Surely I'm a moderator of my own stream.
You are, yeah.
So why won't it... why won't it let me... Right, okay.
There you go. Message deleted by a moderator.
I had to ban the person. There was no way to just delete the message.
There is a way. I moderated before. I'll look into it.
Would you like to be a moderator for my Twitch stream?
Sure.
How do I make you a moderator? As you can tell, this is my very first time doing this, because I have no idea what I'm doing.
I had one other or rather, there is one other question I wanted to go through.
And what was that? Dear
It's,
House Boss.
discuss. The scariest part of a horror story is the setting itself. Agree or disagree? I vehemently disagree.
Oh, I massively disagree with that.
I think it depends on the story.
Yes.
I think if you're talking about a ghost story and you have an abandoned hospital or an abandoned asylum or a haunted house, I think the setting is incredibly important because...
If it's...
Yay! Thank you, Shady.
Question for you. Does a house automatically become haunted if there's a ghost in it?
Definitionally, I think that's true, yes.
No.
Okay, so...
No?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Because
Carry on.
ghosts can exist without
haunting.
For a house to be haunted, the ghost has to be
Malicious?
negative, I'm going to say, because you can haunt...
Goes back to the horror. Does it induce negative feelings?
Sorry, I had to shoo a child away who doesn't understand hand gestures, apparently. Yeah, you can... So essentially, for me, and in my belief, because I understand that my belief is not everyone's belief, but when it comes to ghosts, there are different types and different reasons for why they're still here. And so you can have ghosts that had... Thank you again, Shady. Like, something terrible happened to them, and so they're not ready to cross over or able to cross over, and therefore are still around, that will haunt a space. But you can also have ghosts that are around for benign or positive reasons, such as like watching over family, that aren't haunting a space.
I'm gonna debate you on that one.
Can't debate me on my beliefs.
Because there is literally my old haunt is just a place that you go to a lot.
Oh my god.
So surely it's just existing within a place for an extended period of time. No?
Slang doesn't count when you're talking about things like that.
It's not slang.
No, it is
Oh,
slang.
but-
Or rather,
It-
it's oh, what's it called? It's a turn of phrase.
Okay, but surely the meaning of the word still apply.
So, yeah.
Or else the turn of phrase wouldn't work. I'm wrong, correct me. Like I'm not going to say
You're not wrong, because technically, the word haunt, which comes from hant, H-A-N-T, is frequent visiting, resort, a place frequented, habitual practice of something, usage.
So it's a place where a ghost exists, which means every house with a ghost in is haunted.
Okay, so
So as a setting,
no, wait. So
Whereas technically, haunting is a different word.
So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, since we brought that up before,
It should always be the Oxford Dictionary.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying I'm using the same source. So, haunt has two definitions. The second one is a place frequented by a specific person. That's what you're talking about.
It's a noun instead of a verb.
Yes.
Whereas haunt, when it comes to ghosts, is a manifestation of itself in a place regularly. So the manifestation is kind of important.
Is the
there.
haunting, technically speaking.
Yeah. So
not what they're doing.
If you die, you turn into a ghost. You look over your family, but you never manifest. You're not haunting it. You're just hanging around.
Okay, what is to manifest?
To be seen or moving stuff.
To bring into being, essentially.
Yeah.
You can
if the tree falls in the wood, no one's around. Does anybody hear
to
it?
exist and manipulate a space. No?
Clear or obvious to the eye or mind.
To
Is to
show
manifest.
plainly, to discover. To spread one's fame is also to manifest. Detected
Welcome
in
to
the
Book Club,
act,
where we
evident or
have
visible.
definitions of words.
I think detectable is
Again, I will
good enough.
reiterate, in my belief,
Yes.
something that is haunting a space is something unable to leave it. So it's stuck. Hence why a haunted house can be a house with a ghost or a spectre or whatever word you'd like to use for it that is unable to move on, usually because of a negative reason. Because if it wasn't a negative reason, you would be able to pass on. However, you can have ghosts in a space where they are not stuck, where it is also not haunted.
such as Chucky or Annabelle.
Yes.
I was thinking Harry Potter. Where would those ghosts fit? They are manifesting.
I think
But I'm pretty
canonically
sure
they're
they can
tied to their
leave.
paintings.
They can't leave.
I think canonically they're tied to the
Oh.
paintings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but also they can't leave.
They can
I
move
thought
from
they could.
painting to painting.
They
No,
can
but,
move
yeah,
around
I-
the castle, but they can't leave the castle.
Okay.
So therefore, technically, they haunt the castle.
Either way, moving back, I agree that a setting can be incredibly important. But the question was if it was the most important, and for me, it isn't.
My answer to that is that depends on the point of the book.
What's that called?
Because,
Something house.
like,
Something house.
if you think of something like
I just want to
Saw.
point out, just going back to the Harry Potter example, Moaning Myrtle did leave the castle grounds.
Yes. But she wasn't stuck in a painting either, so.
No,
True.
she was.
And she haunted she haunted the bathroom was the phrasing.
Yep.
But she could leave the bathroom.
Yes, but I really don't think we're going to hold J.K. Rowling as the point of authority on this subject.
No, please.
Or many subjects, for that matter, just for anyone that may be watching, not watching. The woman is a nightmare.
But yeah, you were saying depends on
I think it depends. I think it's the same with anything. Setting has its importance regardless of the work. However, for it to be the most important factor depends on the point of the work. Because, like, for instance, you take something, and again, I know it's not specifically a book, but Saw is a horror. It's a horrid horror. Yes, I laughed at my own joke. But, technically speaking, the setting that it's in could have been different.
Mm-hmm.
Something similar, maybe, but still you could have used... I've never seen it, so I don't actually know what it's in, but I'm assuming it's some sort of abandoned something.
Yes.
Depends, but yes.
Okay, I was just about to say, it depends on which movie you're referring to, but yes.
Forgot
She's
there was
referring to the
multiple of
first
them.
one.
Let's go with the first one. If it
Yeah.
was in like an abandoned gymnasium, it could have been in an abandoned hospital, it could have been in an abandoned school, it could have been in a high rise, essentially. You could change the setting and still have all of the elements of the horror that are there. Whereas if your story is about a haunted house, the setting is the important part. So, for me, setting can be the most important depending on the point. We have 10 minutes left. Is there anything else in this we haven't covered?
If anyone has any recommendations.
I do.
Oh, go on then.
I want to know how I get a little funny animal on the screen.
You want to give a what?
On the stream, I want a little funny animal.
What animal would you like?
I don't know. We'll have to figure that out.
You let me know what animal you'd like and I'll add you in for next time. But go on then, Eli. Do you have any scary book recommendations that you would give for me to absolutely not read?
Sure. As like an introductory, but still really fun horror novel, I would recommend The Talisman that I mentioned at the very beginning of this, I think. Even if you don't like Stephen King, because a lot of the King-isms are removed in that.
The King-isms.
Well, he has a very particular way of writing.
He does, indeed.
I feel like Coombs has a very particular way of writing.
He does. and Kuntz is also a very good author. Which is very funny because I can't remember a single fucking book I've read about it. I've read from Kuntz, but I remember he has a very, very particular way of writing.
And I generally don't really read horror, so I don't have any recommendations.
I think everyone should just buy and read 86, to be fair, or at least watch it.
Yep.
Treat yourself to the emotional roller coaster that is that series.
It's on Crunchyroll, even in
It
Sweden,
is.
which is a goddamn miracle. Yeah.
Is it? Is it the aid in Swedish?
No, God.
No. Okay.
Even if it was, I would
You
not
wouldn't
watch it in Sweden. Yeah, no. I watched Sailor Moon in Swedish.
It is something I always have to laugh at, of like how many translations of something has been done in like actual voice acting, and then how they sound compared to the English and Japanese dubs. Because just I can imagine it being not great. Oh.
So I guess that's our end point. Une, take it away.
Yeah. Oh.
Thank you for joining us. TED Talk on philosophy.
Just to say,
Yes, exactly.
just to
Thank you
briefly
for joining
save
us.
and just to let you all know that next week, same time, same place, we will be talking about unpopular opinions, which, considering how today's gone, will be something.
Will you need to be there for that one, by any chance?
Yes. You are a walking unpopular opinion.
Yeah, no, it's just see the
I
world
will
differently, and that's okay.
I will be on a Comic-Con hungover state, so I'm very glad that Ari will be the one holding
Yeah, next week's my reigns.
next week.
Une will be following up the following week with a conversation about banned books.
Yes.
That's going to be a
And
very
reasons they are
interesting one.
banned.
When
Thank you
Smut
very
Week.
much. I'm not going to butcher your name, so I'm just going to call you Bay. Thank you very much for the follow. I'm not being cruel. I will butcher that.
We'll spell it.
So it's Bay and then LUVW capital E and then lovely. Bay love we lovely?
Potentially. Well, that's
That doesn't sound like all one word.
that's been
And
this
yet.
week's book chat, and thanks for coming.
Yes, and thank you for coming to the first stream as well.
Yeah.
Next week,
Have a good
more
one.
animals.
Yes, more
I'm
animals.
gonna need a
Yay!
bigger
sofa. Shady can sit in that rickety old chair there in the corner.
Sorry. I need to verify something before we stop. The background is animated, right? I'm not going insane.
No, it's animated.
No, it's animated.
And we can
Okay.
change it seasonally. We worked
Because
out.
I was convinced I was going insane because I was looking over at my screen and I thought something moved, and then I looked closer and nothing was moving.
No, you have the dust motes are moving in the light, and because it's the autumn scene, you have the leaves flying through the air out the window.
Cool.
And the steam
I gotta
of the
do
cup
that.
of tea that's between Sam and Une.
So, not insane for that reason. Others maybe so.
I mean, yeah,
Yes,
insanity
well,
is a
this
foregone
panda has
conclusion.
to go stream a movie, so Take care, everyone.
Yes, for our parental advisory viewers, you can
Yes.
now move over to the 31 Days of Paranormal Activity stage and watch A Woman in
A
Black,
Woman in Black.
Mm-hmm.
which Yune is hosting for you in 3 minutes.
Yes. Signing off. Bye-bye.
Oh, I get to put my stream ending scene on. Oh, there we go with our transitional leaves. Ah, see, total pro. Know what I'm doing. I also think I now have 3 moderators that I think I've successfully added, but I have absolutely no idea.
No, you.
Am I one of them?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. No, you do. You have free moderator.
I wasn't 100% sure with you because there was another account that had a very, very similar name, and on Streamlabs it tells me your name, but it doesn't show me your picture. So I was like, please be the right one, otherwise I've just made a random moderator of a random person. Right, so we're going to change this. We're going to do another leafy transition. Ready? Ta-da! Stream offline.